Panda 1, 2, 3, 4 review. I'm just talking about the Kung Fu Panda movies. Kung Fu Panda is one of those iconic DreamWorks series, you know. I only ever remember one, maybe two. So I rewatched them because I wanted to build a bit more of a, you know, it's got cultural relevance. You got Jack Black Poe, and he's got to be one of the more recognizable DreamWorks characters, right? Like what? You got Shrek, you got dragons, you got the panda. So I'm going to talk through each movie one at a time. I'm also doing some incline bench, by the way. But I did just get a few injections, so I don't know if I'm actually meant to lift. But Poe would have done it, you know? Let's begin. Straight away, I do think Kung Fu Panda 1 was the best one. And my hot take is Poe isn't even the main character. Shifu's the main character. I'll explain a bit as I go through the movie, but Shifu is the main character. Yeah, I don't know if this is a good idea. So the movie starts off, we're introduced to Poe the panda, who works in a noodle shop with his goose of a dad. How did that happen? We'll find out later, but we get introduced to the world of Kung Fu and the Furious Five, who I'm gonna say Tigress, I thought was very cool when I was a youth. I still think Tigress is very cool. But Mantis, come on, that's cool. Mantis has actually made a cameo in Baki, but pretty much he wants to be he loves Kung Fu, okay? But he's a panda. Pandas can't do Kung Fu. They can't do it. But that is kind of one of the main things of this movie, is challenging your expectations. And Shifu, like I said, this is the main character. This movie starts off, you know, we've got the Dragon Warrior ceremony, and this is a kind of a thing throughout all the movies, is the idea of a prophecy, which I do like. I'm a fan of prophecy type stories. It's a bit of a weak spot for me. I don't know, they get me. I like being part of a prophecy. I think I'm part of a prophecy. Guess which one in the comments. And so Master Oogway is the turtle. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think he created Kung Fu. He is the originator of Kung Fu, which also leads me to have a lot of different questions about the world as a whole, because there are so many generations of Kung Fu masters. Was Oogway really the first one? And he taught all of them somehow and it kind of spread? Is this how Kung Fu works? It's a bit unclear to me. And some of the movies make it more confusing. I think he's the first one. Whatever. But Shifu runs the dojo in the valley. This is where they're from, the valley. And it's the choosing day. And you know, the thing is gonna be one of Furious Five, and Poe was doing all he can to get into the ceremony because his dad was making him do noodles, they sell noodles. We don't give a shit about noodles. We don't care. I love noodles, sorry. But when the Dragon Warrior is about to be chosen, Poe falls from the sky. He's the chosen one. Oogway picks him. I'm the Dragon Warrior, I'm a panda. This is what happens. Shifu and the Furious Five, very furious, let's say. Shifu specifically. And this is also around where we've been introduced to the idea of Tai Lung, who I think is the best villain in all four movies. I don't think it's close either, and it's because, I hate to say it, aura. He's got aura. Tai Lung was who Shifu raised from a cub to be the Dragon Warrior, yet hatred filled his soul, and he was never gonna be the chosen one, which is why he turned his back on all of them, tried to kill him, take it for himself, but Oogway had to take him out, and that's what we know about Tai Lung for now, but he's in a max security prison. Surely he can't get out. And then we go back to Poe and Shifu and the others, and Shifu was not happy. He's not happy about this situation. Oogway consoles Shifu. He's got quotes that would rival Uncle Iroh. Oogway and Iroh hand in hand in, let's say, revelations to spread. There's an actual word for this type of saying, and I'm forgetting it, so I'll put it here. Shifu is doing all he can to get Poe to quit. He's borderline killing him. Like, he's sending him through all these obstacles. He basically dies. And I'm just like, this doesn't seem in the spirit of Kung Fu. And this goes back to where I say Shifu's the main character, because we've already seen Shifu's failures, which is why he's tried to train the Furious Five to become these things. He doesn't have the open mind. Poe's kind of just there as a plot device, if I'm being honest. Watch this movie with Shifu as the main character in your head, and you're gonna be like, you know what? The boy with a saxophone, dare I say man, the fuck am I saying, has a point. Isn't it also kind of bad I haven't really improved? To be fair, I've been very slack at practicing. Now that the word of the Dragon Warrior has spread, it gets to the prison, which a feather falls down, and Tai Lung does a crazy prison escape, by the way. There was one moment, I think, if they just cut the elevator, he would have been stuck, but then we wouldn't have a movie. And Tai Lung's escape, thing is, he's cool. Like, you get showcased straight away. This is a vicious guy. He can do crazy shit. This is why I think he's a cool villain as well. The other characters, I feel like, don't have this type of actual Kung Fu prowess. They're kind of just OP by other means, and I think it kind of takes away from their presence. Like, you don't really care as much, but continuing. Poe, on the other side, is starting to gel in a bit. He's starting to get in. Like, Shifu still's like, fuck this guy. But the Furious Five, you know, they're starting like, Poe's a pretty good guy. And not that this isn't a cool weight, but the feeling my arm is having right now is, it's here. This is where it hurts. This is where it hurts. And this is where, like, the Shifu backstory with Tai Lung actually happens. Oogway, when Shifu comes to him saying, what are we gonna do? Tai Lung's escaped. Oogway tells him,
my time has come.
Master!
But Oogway imparts his knowledge, imparts his wisdom, and Shifu finally commits to the panda. It took Oogway turning into a bunch of petals for Shifu to be like, okay, it doesn't matter if this isn't what I wanted. This is what's happening, and I've got to open my mind to the possibilities. And this is where he starts to want to train the panda. The Furious Five, on the other side, have gone off to face Tai Lung by themselves because they're like, we'll train for this. And Tai Lung just completely rolls them. You know, that was a cool action sequence. And honestly, like with Tai Lung going around the mountain on I actually think this is probably the coolest fight in maybe all 4 movies in terms of, I don't know, it's just cool. He coming up from the fog, you know what I'm talking about. That was a cool scene. And then this is also where Shifu sees Po doing crazy moves to get to a cookie and finds food is his motivation to do these crazy trainings. So then he goes into this training arc with the dumpling. I call it the dumpling training arc. And we get this massive montage of Po training with Shifu using dumplings as kind of a mechanism to make him do stuff. And suddenly he's OP. Maybe this is something we can integrate into reality. I would love to just, you know, you know what I'm talking about? That would be really cool. I love Xiaolong Bao. What about you guys? Well, back to Shifu. You can't train everyone the same way, and he's been stuck in his ways the whole time. And this is kind of more where Shifu is having this development. Like Po realistically doesn't change much at all, I think, in this movie. He's the same guy, he's just kind of being accepted and realizing things he can do. Things aren't impossible if you try to do them. It's only impossible if you think it's impossible. And this goes for Shifu too. And Tai Lung's kind of an embodiment of Shifu's past and what he was and what he's stuck in. And Po is kind of that thing where it's opening his whole world. Even though he's still a grumpy little red panda. I'm pretty sure he's a red panda. And I think it's weird that I don't actually know if it was addressed until the 4th movie. And I thought maybe a panda to panda would have had some sort of camaraderie, unless it's a retcon panda. And one other thing about Tai Lung is I don't understand how he's been confined for many years, I believe, and he hasn't lost any strength. How? Is it the snow leopard genetics? Tai Lung is almost at the village, so they need to give Po the dragon scroll. And when he gets it, and it's just reflective, it's like, huh? And Shifu's like, I've let everyone down again. I've let everyone down again. Look inwards, okay? There is no secret ingredient. But this is where they're like, nah, it's done. Everyone leaves the village because Tai Lung is just gonna roll everyone. But Po stays. It is his destiny. He's the prophesized one. Because even Po was gonna go off because Shifu was gonna stay behind and take care of the monster he created. But this is where Po realizes there is no secret ingredient. He's like, no, I am the Dragon Warrior. I will save the valley. I will beat Tai Lung. Skadoosh. I'll get to that in a sec. But Shifu was kind of similar to Po's dad, where Po was kind of forcing the noodle shop mindset on him. And Shifu was forcing that golden Dragon Warrior mindset on Tai Lung, even though it wasn't what was destined for them, and it kind of caused them all this negativity. This is where the panda shows up to Tai Lung and they fight. It's a bit of a meme fight, right? Like, there are some kung fu moves, but a lot of it's just like Po being fat, if I'm being honest. I don't have an issue with that, but this is why I say the Furious Five fight was cool, because that's actually like cool choreographed fights, but this is, I guess there is still some sort of creativity regarding, maybe even more creativity when you're doing a fight where you're using memes effectively to win. There are no accidents. This is what I've been trying to remember the whole time. There are no accidents. And that is, I think there could be accidents. I am sure we've all done some things that were like, oh, that was an accident. But this is one of the main messages of this movie, probably the main message, okay? And to look past what you think is impossible. The one issue I have with the fight is the whooshy finger hold Skadoosh to win. Because to my understanding, he didn't even train that move. And it kind of just feels like an ass pull to win the fight. I'm not mad about it because, you know, it's visually very cool, like whooshy finger hold. That's a kind of became a meme. And then, you know, the valley is saved. And this is where Shifu's faking dead like a little weasel. I know he's not an actual weasel, but why are you faking dead? He's actually just doing it. He's being performative. I was kind of mad at that. Like, Shifu, come on, you've had your character arc, step up. But yeah, Shifu, throughout the course of this movie, has had to find peace by overcoming his past, embracing the present, to get to the future, okay? And that's Kung Fu Panda 1. I think it's a very good movie. There's really no issues. Like, in terms of the series, like I said, I think it's the best one. And the whole notion of like, there are no accidents, there's no secret ingredient. Like, these are ideas that were introduced in the very start of the film. And even the whooshy finger hold, that was shown in the very beginning of the film. A lot of the stuff at the end, the conclusion was mostly foreshadowed in the end. It kind of goes with the prophesized tale, but that's Kung Fu Panda 1. I mean, it wouldn't have 4 movies if the first movie wasn't good, so I'm gonna give it probably 8. It wasn't quite as good as I remembered it, but it's still an iconic thing. You know, I'm wearing fucking Kung Fu Panda pajamas. We moved to the second one. Thematically, very similar to the first one. Narratively, it's very similar to the first one too. And this was also the only other one I could kind of remember. So this is the one that follows Po in the Furious Five going up against Master Shen, who is this peacock who is trying to end Kung Fu through weaponry. Just like the first movie, This movie also has a prophecy, and it's Shen being defeated by a warrior of white and black. Who do we know that's white and black? Again, the finishing move and the mindset needed to achieve it is basically the first scene. Shifu with a water drop ends up being the... We'll get to it. And the idea of finding inner peace. This is the main themes in this one. Movie starts off, we see that scene with Shifu doing the move that Po was gonna eventually learn, finding inner peace. There's a village that gets attacked for its metal, and this is where Po and the Furious Five come in to save the day. But then Po gets a glimpse of this thing on the arms, and he has this weird traumatic flashback, and you see his mother Panda, you assume, and it's like, are we gonna get Panda lore? And this prompts Po to ask his goose dad about where he came from, and he came from a bucket of turnips or something. So, I hate to break it, you're not a little turnip, you're a panda, buddy. Sorry. And this is also where we find about Lord Shen. This is actually not revealed till later, but it's kind of obvious. In his mission to stop this prophecy, he's gone out to create these weapons that can just destroy Kung Fu, as well as wipe out the pandas. It's actually very dark compared to, I think, the other 3 movies. Nothing that dark. That's very dark. The wiping out, that's a bit fucked up. Shifu is actually taking more of a backseat in this movie. Po is actually the protagonist in this one, okay? Shifu's number 1, Po's number 2, Po's number 3. I don't think Po's number 4 either. Kinda is, kinda not. Po and the Furious Five go to Shen's castle to try and defeat this thing. And what ends up happening is they get captured. This is where we actually get a lot of the lore told to us. And then they get sent to prison where he finds some other Kung Fu masters. And they don't even want to leave prison because they're like, nope, Kung Fu is dead because this weapon's overpowering. They had a lot of metal. How are they getting these cool symbols on it? Is that some cool magic? There is actually kind of magic in this world. I didn't even say that. There's definitely magic in this world. I've got the magic in me. Sorry. And this is very similar to what happened in the first movie where when Shifu was trying to stop Tai Lung escaping and actively caused it, he sent the bird, which let the feather, the whole butterfly effect. And that's what's happened now with Shen, where he's tried to kill the pandas, which has led for this panda to get him in this situation. They're creating their own demise. You can't escape the prophecy, okay? And Shen is very similar to Tai Lung motivation-wise. They kind of just have an unending thirst for power, which is like the most generic villain shit you can do. It's like the bare minimum. I don't even think Tai Lung would be that memorable if he didn't have so much aura in his fights. Because really, I feel like you ask anyone, they're not even gonna know who the villain of 3 and 4 are. Maybe even 2, they're not gonna remember. Just because they don't stand out that much. This is where Po finds out about what's happened to the pandas, full of trauma. Then he gets hit by the weapon and he just tanks it. I mean, he doesn't actually tank it. He just takes one and then everyone thinks he's dead. He's got a big gut, that guy, and he tanked that cannon. And this is where the goat lady, I actually kind of forgot what species she is, but she's played by Michelle Yeoh. She's very cool. She gave Shen the prophecy, but she kind of tells Po everything that happened and helps him work through that trauma because he's kind of having a similar thing to Shifu in the first movie where he's got to overcome what's happened in the past to be able to find inner peace. Because if you're constantly dwelling on the past, how are you going to find peace? And that's what he needs. He needs peace. You're never going to be operating at full capacity if you're not at peace. And then this is where he epically shows up in the final fight when Shen's about to send an envoy out to blow up everything. I don't understand these dictator type leaders that just want to destroy everything. What do you even have then? Just rubble, isn't it? He comes down, epic fighting moves, and they start firing the cannons. And this is where he pulls out that move that Shifu did at the start of the water dropper, but he's doing it on the cannons and he's just flicking them off. Again, it's funny, but it is kind of a meme fight. It's a bit less memey than the other one because he's honestly kind of doing a Kamehameha with these balls. Eventually he flings enough away, he sends one right back at Shen, and I think Shen dies. Tai Lung got sent to the spirit realm, but Shen just kind of let a thing fall on him. He's it's like that dog where he's accepting his fate. He's dead, and then peace is brought back to the world. I actually really like the whole Kung Fu Panda world. I believe they've called it China. Seems like a pretty mythical place. I would like to go there. Then the movie kind of ends again. Everyone's happy again in the village. But then we get a post-credit scene and there's a whole village of pandas, which, okay, I don't know how I feel about it because I feel like it kind of, one of the whole driving factors of that movie has now just been deleted because not all the pandas are actually dead. They just ran away, which, I'm happy about. Don't get me wrong. I don't want pandas dead, but that's the second movie, okay? It kind of is just the first movie, again, reskinned, but this time Po is really the main character and it's dealing with a bit different themes, but it's the same recipe. All these movies kind of follow the same recipe. Don't knock it if it's working. A very generous 7. I think it's lower than that. It's definitely lower than the first one, but they're gonna keep getting lower. I'm telling you that now. They're getting lower every time. And then the third movie starts off with this new guy called Kai fighting Uguay in the spirit realm. And this is the first time I think we've actually seen the spirit realm. So I was like, whoa, world building. He's taking all the souls of all these Kung Fu masters. And we get this message where the more you take, the less you have. Uguay again, cooking. They're obviously having issues power scaling the villains because every time they come up with some new, the the first one was good, Kung Fu beating Kung Fu. Second one, Kung Fu beating weapons, cool. But now we're doing Kung Fu beating like spirit bombs. Anyway, going on. This time there's another prophecy. The prophecy again involves Kai and Dragon Warrior bringing peace to the realms, okay? And Po has to become the teacher, and he sucks at it, okay? He's a terrible teacher. He's now taken over the Furious Five, yet he can't teach them. I think if you're good at something, you can teach it to an extent, even if you suck at teaching. But he just sucks, and it's bad, but I also think like how are the Furious Five failing so hard on basic activities? I don't know. Kai has now got enough spirit energy that he returns to the mortal realm, and no one knows who he is because he's from a long time ago. He was meant to be Oogway's partner, which brings me back to is Oogway really the originator of Kung Fu? Because he's mad old. Like I know Total's live a long time, but there were so many Kung Fu masters mentioned throughout the whole series that all must have come from Oogway at some point. I don't know. I'm confused about it. I think it's just because I wasn't thinking hard enough. I was eating a blueberry muffin when I watched the movie, and I think that kind of took a bit of my processing power, as you do. Po's panda father has now rocked up to the noodle shop, and there's a bit of a like, who's this guy? Like obviously, you know, it's his dad, but they don't realize, and then, oh my God, Po has two dads. Wow, way ahead of its time. And his goose dad's a bit intimidated because obviously his panda dad, he's got that biological connection, but the goose dad raised him, so he doesn't actually have to be upset, but you know, I feel like that would probably be a normal thing to feel if you're an adoptive father. And then we go back to the palace and you're looking at the Kung Fu, all the relics like they did in the first movie. I didn't mention that, but they went through all the relics. It's just fangirling. I thought this bit was a bit cringe. Like the dad just rocked. I guess they've made pandas purposely annoying, but because there's only been one in the whole movie, you don't notice it that much. But now there's more like, oh fuck, they're all annoying. Po's panda father keeps dead naming him as Lotus. That's not his name anymore, buddy. You may have called him Lotus many years ago, but you're an absent father. He's Po now. There's also this running gag that everyone Kai faces doesn't know who he is. It's like, oh, who's Kai? Who's Kai? Which, you know, obviously he's been buried to history, but again, everyone knows Oogway. I guess he just lived so long, whatever. That's a running gag, and it also makes it so like, you're never taken that seriously, even though you can tell he's meant to be OP, but you already know the formula of these movies at this point. He's just gonna lose to some meme battle. They keep sending these Jade Warriors to fight them. Furious Five involved, and he's summoning the spirits of all the previous Kung Fu masters to fight, doing his bidding, because he's trying to find the Dragon Warrior to take his spirit energy, because then he can fully ascend. We find out that the secret panda village uses chi. Pandas are known for chi, and chi is the power to give, and that's how they're gonna defeat Kai, who has the power to take. And he got banished to the spirit world because he went to the pandas to learn chi and then used it in a negative way. He was draining all the pandas and then just everyone of their chi, and that's how he was getting power. He went corrupt, he went corrupted. That's how Oogway ended up sending him away with the help of all the pandas, but you know, he's back now. And then they finally make it to the panda village, and there's, you know, a lot of memes like, haha, we all look like each other. And then there's a few like pandas you think they're gonna be relevant, like there's a Mei Mei, she's called Mei Mei, she's a dancer, but like she's just kind of there. I guess they're just trying to make characters exist. We get a bit more Po backstory. We get the full flashback now of what happened when he was a baby. Then we go back to the valley, and a bunch of the Jade Warriors have got to the thing, and Shifu and the Five are fighting him, but they all get rolled, which you would have thought the modern day Kung Fu could have beaten these ancient ones. Whatever, I understand you gotta have some stuff happening for the plot to go on, but I didn't expect them to be rolled. But Tigress narrowly escapes, because she's gotta go, she has a map somehow to get to the village, even though it was secret. I kind of forgot how they got that. I was just like, I guess she's going to the village. So she goes to the village to warn Po. And the whole reason Po even went there was to learn chi. And this is where he gets the massive reveal, okay? They don't know how to do chi anymore. They can't do chi. And you know, you find out his whole father lied about him, and it's just how, like, what was the point of all this? We're all doomed to Kai then. It's just, what was even the point? You just lie, you're a lying panda. You're a lying panda. Kai was already heading to the village, like he's been there before. Yet Tigress still beat in there, which doesn't make sense. She was also injured. I don't get how that made sense. Po has decided, if we don't have chi, I'm gonna train the whole village to fight. And this is where we kind of get that Po becoming the teacher. He's using the methods that work for him with them because they're all pandas. Even though that kind of contradicts the whole thing where everyone has a different method, but he's teaching them all. That was pretty cool. You know, he's compromising, like it couldn't do the thing that they wanted to do, so they're compromising with the skills they have, and he's having to overcome barrier that he said that he couldn't be a teacher. He has to be a teacher now. And Kai finally rocks up, and the pandas are hitting him with everything they've got, right? And they've got some cool moves. Like, this is one of the cooler meme fights, I will say. Like I keep saying, they're basically all meme fights. And I'm not really upset by it, but we get to see cool uses of the panda's unique abilities and builds, and they're doing pretty well, but then, you know, Kai is still too much. And then what do? He grabs Kai and does the self, that looks like a, I don't even know what that was, but he grabs Kai and does a self whooshy finger hold to send them both to the spirit realm. And then they're kind of just trapped there. He's like, okay, I'll sacrifice myself so you do that. What I think is an ass pull is suddenly the pandas remember how to do chi. Not even just the pandas, everyone there. can just suddenly do chi. I guess it wasn't something you had to learn, you could just do it. You just had to believe you could do it. To me, it's like, oh, what was even the point then? They put all the chi they have into the thing, and then he mega evolves into the actual spirit dragon warrior. He's got cool stuff, he does crazy moves. But again, other than the dragon, it's still kind of a meme fight. And one thing I mentioned is, in all these movies, they save the actual kung fu for like random fodder in the streets. Yeah, when it comes to the actual big bosses, they just do like the most comedy shit ever. Use your kung fu. I'm watching. Keep doing this. I'm gonna watch the Karate Kid instead. How are you gonna like that, buddy? And then from that, he gives all his chi to Kai, and he's like, yes. No, it's too much. It's too much. Explodes. The end of Kai. Dead? Question mark? I think so. They're killing people in these movies now. Then Poe has a one-on-one with Oogway in this spirit realm. He's the chosen one. It has that golden thing that Gojo had, and they kind of imparts the wisdom and gives him the staff. This yin-yang staff. He's a yin-yang panda. It's going full circle. He's now the Dragon Warrior in spirit and teaching and everything. And then the movie ends. Kai, like the villain, had like the least impact out of any of the villains so far. I think like he's just kind of there to like force stuff to happen. But he himself, like again, from the very beginning, they're treating him like a meme. That's kind of my issue with these movies is there's no actual threat. Like you're not actually, I know it's a kid's movie, okay? I understand it's a kid's movie, but there's just no like fear of something happening to a main character, you know? They could have done it because in the next movie, the Furious 5 don't even pay to the credit scene because I'm assuming they couldn't pay the actors. And the fourth movie actually felt like a TV show that they just repurposed for a movie. I'm about to talk about that, but 3 gets, I'm just gonna give it a 5, maybe 6, but like, what are you doing to my panda? Now for the fourth and final, maybe there'll be more. They should do a 5th one because then Furious 5 for the Kung Fu Panda 5. I'm gonna speed run through this one. Because spoiler alert, I don't like this one that much. Like with the first scene, we see Tai Lung again. We're like, oh my God, Tai Lung is back? How? But then you see Scales. It's clearly not Tai Lung. Then you go back and Poe's fighting manta rays. And this is what I'm saying again. Poe is doing like cool moves on fights that don't matter. And it's really frustrating when that happens. Poe's using his new staff to flaunt stuff with the spirit world, which, you know, that's another thing an Avatar can do. You know, go to Uncle Iroh, you go to Avatar, maybe there's a bit of similarities there. Like I said, Furious 5 aren't even in this movie because they're on missions. I know you couldn't afford the voice actors anymore. I know that's what happened. This is one of the parts of the movie I really don't like. So the Dragon Warrior was this warrior that was prophesized for hundreds of years, and then he's finally chosen as Poe. I don't know how much time has actually passed in the universe. It seems like it can't be that long, say 10 years or something. Say 15. And Poe already has to find the successor. What is that? Like, I think stories of like finding successor and stuff's kind of cool, but you're telling me it took hundreds and hundreds of years to get the Dragon Warrior to appear, and then after only 15 years, you're already looking for a successor. Like, what the hell is that, bro? I didn't think that's how it worked. I didn't think it was some inherited role. That made me very mad. I think because of that notion, I look at this movie, I'm like, I want him to be the Dragon Warrior. You've built it up for all these movies. He's the Dragon Warrior. Let him be the Dragon Warrior, but now he's not even the Dragon Warrior. So like, Uwe's staff has basically just been a plot device to find a higher purpose for him so that the series can end. It seems like that. And now they're doing the auditions again for the Dragon Warrior, like the very first movie. And then he points to himself because he doesn't want to give it up. I don't want you to give it up either, Poe, but guess what? The plot's making you do it, so whatever. But then it goes back, you know, think how Uwe, it wasn't like a planned thing. It was like, when you know, you know. So we're keeping with that. That's fine. And then this is where we meet the least obvious successor of all time. Like you can tell all the, but this Fox character comes in voiced by Aquafina, who she went on a rampage where she was voicing every animated thing for like 3 years. Fox comes in stealing everything from the temple. They break the vase again. That's a running gag, even though they didn't do it in the second movie, unless I missed that. But she has all these crazy moves. Poe still ends up on top, which you would hope that the Dragon Warrior can overcome a petty thief, right? But you know, they seem, you know, cool. They got some slick moves. And then Poe takes him to prison, but this is where you find out that there is actually this criminal overlord called the Chameleon that has been on a rampage, taking out all these leaders to try and gain power across the lands. And what do you know? It's the same motivation as every other villain in the series. They just want more power. Do something different. This is the 4th movie. You gotta do something different now. Wouldn't it have been cool if like Poe was getting fat and lazy or some shit? And then the Furious 5 kind of had like they're pulling up a coup on Poe. Like they're like, Poe, you're not worthy for this anymore. You're not protecting, you're not filling your duties. And they're all trying to fight Poe and it becomes like an infighting type. Maybe that's trash. But you know what I'm saying? Just do something different. I get you have a formula, do something different. Like, we learn more about the Chameleon. She has like sorcery powers. Again, they're just trying to upscale every villain so it makes sense. And this is where they talk about Shiva being a red panda. Weird that it wasn't mentioned earlier. Crime syndicate led by this lizard, craving power. We see this, she turns into an elephant. So she can just turn into anything it seems like, which just seems very overpowered, which I guess they have to get stronger every time if they're not gonna do some more complex complication than powerful villain wants. Like, if you do powerful villain wants power, you gotta make them stronger every time. That's why I think you got to pivot to a whole different kind of complication so you can have more interesting things happen. Keep this in mind for 5, please. Please. The Fox and Poe, I honestly forgot the Fox's name. They've teamed up and they're going to go to the city to stop it from happening, basically, and use his power as the Dragon Warrior to stop this. It's called Juniper City. And I don't know if this is a real thing in China, but if it is, cool. I don't think it is though. We get this tavern scene where there's a whole tavern fight that breaks out because the fox is scamming people and Po just wanted information in a boat to get across, so they have to fight everyone. Which again, this is like I'm saying, they're using actual cool kung fu on the fodder instead of the main villains. Whatever. Continuing, we see this is also where we get some backstory of the fox. Like they were part of this they were kind of a loner in the streets, a homeless type thing, and the chameleon took her in. So we find out the fox. You know, they were an orphan. They've kind of had to live by thieving the whole life to get through. See, I'm reading my notes. I made notes when I was watching these because, you know, I'm a professional, and it's just there's no reason to care about this villain. They're just kind of there. They're just a looming threat. They don't actually care about this villain. They have nothing interesting going on. But now they get to the city and they're immediately chased by police because they've got a hit out for them for some reason. Oh yeah, because of the sorry. It's very inconsistent on when he wants to fight randoms or not. Like he obviously could have just cleared out the police or whatever it was with just any of his moves. He just used his magical spirit staff on like random children, it looked like. So I don't know why I can't just do it on police. They're inconsistent. And there's one other thing about this movie that it looks a bit different to the other three, and I can't put my finger on what it is. Some of the shots just felt different. I can't explain. There's also a whole nother subplot that's going on where Poe's dads are trying to come after him and they're making their way in the same path, but they're doing it again and it's more memey. It's kind of there. Like I thought it was a cute side plot. I actually didn't mind the side plot. You know, some dad's camaraderie. I was hoping they were gonna kiss. Spoiler, didn't happen. This is where we find out a criminal undercity where they were raised and we meet a bunch of their things, but they don't like him there anymore. Bunch of chat that I don't think really means anything. They end up going to the chameleon castle and they finally get to the big castle where the chameleon reside. You know, funny fart wakes everyone up, but then you know, they get in and this is where Poe gets caged and shock. The fox betrayed him. The fox was actually raised by the chameleon basically. And you know, the fox looks sad about it, but you know, this could have caught some people off guard. It could have caught some people off guard. It wasn't like that. It wasn't like, it was discreet. I'll say it was pretty discreet. And in this betrayal, they took the staff from Poe and gave it to the chameleon. And now what she's gonna do with the staff is call forward every Kung Fu Panda in the past, every Kung Fu Master of the past, and steal their powers to her. Like the muscle memory and the shape-shifting. It has every villain ever, Tai Lung, Kai, Shen, every single one ever, and she has all the powers. So it's really like how, like, it's just like you're powering up this villain that we already don't really care about even more. So it's like, she looks impossible to beat now. We don't care about this one villain, so they got to bring back every other villain to hope we care about her now, and we still don't. Do you care about the chameleon? Be honest, you do not care about the chameleon. This is the worst villain in the series. You do not care about Poe uses kung fu. He gets out of the cage, but he's still like on the run. He's getting chased by everyone. And then the fox comes and fights him, but then like, actually, I'm sorry, Poe, I'm with you now, I'm with you. And then, you know, forgives her, as a teacher would, you would say. But then they go back, they wake their way back, and they start fighting her. But you know, she's using every type of transformation she has now. All the main villains, everyone. And I forgot to mention, she just straight gave the staff. Actually, like, I don't need it anymore. You're still handing back like a weapon of fucking huge power to your adversary. Why would you do that? It bites you in the butt as well. Why would you do that? It's so dumb. You couldn't have found a way to give it to him like mid-fight. So dumb. Why would you do that? Imagine like you're having like a sword fight with someone. You steal their sword, then you're like, actually, I don't need it anymore. Have it back. Why would you do that? And this is, you know, it's not really subtle, but Poe hits them with he's changed within. Real change happens within you, not on the outside, which Chameleon is just doing on the outside, basically. Haha. Materialize what you're saying, Poe. And now the fox joins in Poe, and they're both fighting the Chameleon, doing all these things. And then Chameleon starts combining all these things like All for One from My Hero Academia using multiple quirks, but she's using multiple Kung Fu Masters at once, comes in this massive thing. It's just like, okay, buddy. I don't know. I clearly am not a fan of this movie, even though I think it's just because they're not doing anything cool anymore. They're just spamming shit and hoping people like it. And then he transforms into Poe, and it's a Poe v Poe, Poe v Poe, Poe v Poe. You know what I'm saying? And then Poe gets stuck in a cage, so the fox has to save the day. And then they basically just one-shot the ultimate chameleon with the staff that she gave back to them. She just gets one-shot by the staff. And then she's about to get up again. She gets actually one-shot with the staff this time, and says skadoosh, as you have to say. And then all the Kung Fu Masters, including all the villains, happily go back to the spirit realm and take her with her. They're just happy to go back. And then, yeah, they go back to the village, back to the valley. Poe claims her as her new successor, and Shifu's like, okay. And that's the fourth movie. I didn't mention the dad plot that was going was kind of just same location, similar thing happening, but with them. It was a funny little thing. Like that was like somewhat of a saving grace, even though some of the scenes are a bit cringe. And I like seeing more of China again. Lovely place. But yeah, that's the fourth movie. Like I don't really have anything to say about everything I could say. I've already mentioned. There's a declining trend. And then in the credit scene, they finally have the Furious 5 back. They don't talk obviously because they somehow ran out of money. Maybe there were scheduling conflicts, but why are you excluding 5 of probably the coolest characters in the series? Furious 5. I'm furious that Furious 5 missing. My throat's hurting because I've been speaking for like an hour in this recording. I don't know how short this video is going to end up being, but like Kung Fu Panda 4. 4 for 4. That's probably harsh, but overall, Kung Fu Panda is definitely in the big 3 of DreamWorks films with, you know, Shrek and dragons. I'm probably forgetting something really obvious, and if I am, sorry, but I could watch one, you know, every other year or so, be like, yay, that's the Shifu movie, and that's probably why it's good. Shifu, Master Shifu. If you know, you know. And then the second one, again, is pretty good. And then the third is where I really stopped caring. And then the fourth, I obviously don't care at all. But even in the big 26, it's a good series. And I think it's better. It's still, even the weaker movies, I think are better than a lot of the modern, like the new series that are coming out. So I'm not that upset about it. But all that being said, did you enjoy this guy talking about the pandas for? I actually really hurt my throat now, but stay sexy and please, inner peace.